Hi BookTube, it's Amy. I'm back again reading from The Anatomy of Bibliomania by Holbrook Jackson. We are beginning the 8th part of the book today, titled Of the Uses of Books, with a section titled Some Adventious Uses. Many and sundry are the uses to which bookmen, students, and others put their books. All manner and conditions of folk use them for all manner of purposes. Some sell them for money, as others publish, and yet more write them or write about them to the same end. Some use them as a currency of exchange, as Gibbon, who gave a copy of The Decline and Fall for a hogshead of Madeira. Tolstoy, in his youth, would use Tashev's dictionaries as tests of endurance by holding them in his outstretched hand for 5 minutes at a time, though the feat caused him terrible pain. George Wyndham played with his books and so defied the northeast wind. In the United States of America, books are upheld as a means of adding to the attractiveness of women. Any woman who knows something of literature and science, of travel and biography, will find herself becoming more and more attractive. Quoting there from an advertisement in the Atlantic Monthly, apparently, from February of 1927. In some lands, holy books are used for the taking of oaths, and in an emergency, a secular book has been used for a sacred purpose, as that on that occasion recorded by Festing Jones, when an engineer in Central America, lacking a Bible, married a couple of colored folk who spoke no English with Tristram Shandy, out of which he read a chapter. Quoting there from Samuel Butler's A Memoir, page 155, I think, of whatever the edition would be. Others, again, collect books, hoarding them as men gather around them postage stamps or defunct coins, blown eggs, or dead butterflies. But I have anathematized these inferior faculties in subsequent sections, so also those of whom, again, there is more elsewhere, who beg, borrow, steal, or even buy them to read, thus giving them their due homage and putting them to their proper service. The reader's fancy makes the fate of books. At the same time, they are not solely for reading, even when they are read. They are tools, companions, consolers, guides, entertainments. Fielding called the novel a pocket theater. Doctors, teachers, kill times, and life preservers, substitutes for thought, all of which uses have been touched upon briefly or at large, escapes from inconveniences, such as going into the country. Sir Leslie Stephen loved the country best in books, quoting there from Country Books in Hours in a Library. The rationale of their utility in these respects remaineth, and we've got a line in Latin here, jucundum et anceps subjectum, a pleasant but a doubtful subject, as one terms it, and with brevity to be discussed. Many erroneous opinions held are about the use of books, not alone among the profane, if among the sort at all, for they would hesitate to ascribe any useful purpose to literature, or if any, not as they say, for the likes of them. Rather, would I impute this limitation to one or at most two purposes, such as study or reading among the learned. The uses of books are much more varied, as I have noted, and shall proceed farther to dilate. Mohammedans are in the habit of scrutinizing any printed or written piece of paper lying upon the ground, not knowing but it may contain some piece of their Koran. It was owing to the possession of a like habit that Addison was able to search out many uses for books, which might else have been overlooked. For, as he widely saith, no mortal author, in the ordinary fate and vicissitude of things, knows to what use his works may come to some time or other be applied. Thus a man may often meet with very celebrated names in a paper of tobacco. He admitted having lighted his pipe more than once with the writings of a prelate, a use which other books have served many times, as when Carlyle ordered Edward Fitzgerald to read or light pipes with a book which he hath given him. And he had a friend who was ingenious enough to convert the essays of a man of quality into a kind of fringe for his candlesticks. He remembered in particular, after having read over a poem of an eminent author on a victory, meeting with several fragments of it upon the next rejoicing day, employed in squibs and crackers, thus celebrating its subject in a double capacity. He once met with a page of Mr. Baxter under a Christmas pie. This discovery had a notable result, for whether the pastry cook had made use of it through chance or waggery for the defence of that superstitious viand, he knew not, but upon the perusal of it he conceived so good an idea of the author's piety that he bought the whole book. He often profited by such accidental readings, coming across many pieces either out of print or not to be met with in the bookshops. And on the shelves of his library, among the folios, were 2 band boxes lined with deep erudition and abstruse literature, quoting there from The Spectator. The habit of using the pages of books for packing parcels was at one time popular. John Rawlinson, who bequeathed his collection to the Bodleian, rescued from the grocers, chandeliers, etc., many rare documents, including originals from my Lord Bolingbroke, Oxford, Omford, Strafford, the Electress of Hanover, Prior, etc., and on another occasion, documents formerly belonging to Sir John Cook. They were sold by his nephew's widow to support pies, currants, sugar, etc., quoting there from Annals of the Bodleian by Macrae. Macaulay went so far as to prophesy that some of the well-puffed fashionable novels of 1829 would hold the pastry of 1830, and others, then extolled in language almost too high-flown for the merits of Don Quixote, would line the trunks of 1831, quoting there from Mr. Montgomery's poems and essays. When Duke Humphrey's library at Oxford was pillaged by anti-popish vandalism, manuscripts were sold to tailors for their measures, to bookbinders for covers, and the like. These uses have several records. On the day that Monsieur Duvinger du Horain, Abbé of Saint Cyran, came out of the dungeon of Vincennes, he was having himself measured for a suit of clothes, which he badly needed, when he observed that the tailor had cut out his band's sacrilege from the works of Saint Augustine on grand papier que le Cardinal Richelieu avait fait cesser dans la prison de son diocèse. Some French there, and our footnote is telling us that is from Janin's Le Livre. Read in Isaac Disraeli, or rather read in Isaac Disraeli, how ancient manuscripts have been used for covering the drums of battledores, patching clothes, bookbinding, etc. For there is no end to their ingenious uses in the service of man, some of which I shall now set out. And that is the end of that section there. But it's interesting how the way we recycle books and literature and, ephemera like newspapers and whatnot has changed. I mean, newspapers and magazines are increasingly less common, but we don't recycle books in the way that they used to. We're more likely to buy disposable things now. We're not tearing out pages of our books that we've read and no longer want or no longer have a use or desire for, or consider, cheap or penny literature. We're no longer tearing out the pages and using them to light our bedtime reading candles or the chandeliers in our dining rooms. And we're not, wrapping our lunch in the remains of whatever novel we were reading yesterday. And I suppose that's a good thing and a bad thing. I think instead of recycling and leaving the remnants for our ancestors to perhaps find, in the spines of books. Sometimes, older book comes apart and you see the waste paper, the binder's waste that was used. We don't recycle in that way anymore. The recycling process as it exists now completely destroys whatever was recycled. For instance, if I threw Holbrook Jackson into the blue bin of my apartment building, it would be no more. It would go off to the recycling plant and probably be pulped down into bits. If it even made it that far, if it didn't get sorted out, if during the sorting process it wasn't observed to, I don't know, have something in it. Perhaps they would decide that the cloth is not recyclable, and so the whole thing is thrown aside into the trash heap and ends up in some, foreign country's trash pile after being exported from North America. But I think that's enough about the life cycle of a book. That is to say, I think the life cycle of books has changed. And I don't know if we're going to be able to find fragments of books in the same way that we've been able to for the last couple of 100 years. Because it still is a thing, there's single pages of Gutenberg Bibles, single pages or signatures or sections of, incunables or 16th, 17th, 18th century books that are only in existence because of how books were torn apart and recycled and reused in an era when people were more thrifty and made use of every single man-made item. Now, when someone's done with a book, if it isn't passed on in a charity shop or a thrift store or a little free library or sold somewhere, it's probably just going to end up in the recycle or in the trash, unfortunately, because we don't think about doing that kind of thing. I wouldn't think about going, I'm done with The Anatomy of Bibliomania by Holbrook Jackson, and I don't know, I've dropped it in the bathtub while reading it in a bubble bath, and it is, destroyed. It is no good anymore. I don't think about, maybe I'll tear it apart and use it in the campfire, or maybe I'll take the pages that are salvageable and, wrap somebody's Christmas gift in it. We simply aren't doing that kind of thing in most places anymore. But anyway, here on page 131, the next section here will be titled Books as Furniture. So we'll pop our bookmark in here and set Holbrook Jackson aside until the next reading.